Okay, friends, we're going to do section 5.5, big ideas and operations of functions. And this should look somewhat familiar to you because we kind of did this in Fin last year. So we're going to do things, for example, so functions, of course, we have like the f of x and g of x, and we're going to do things like f plus g of x, f minus g of x, f g x, f over g x, which means just add them, subtract them, multiply them, and divide them, and then we'll throw a number in there while we're at it. Okay? So it's time. Let's just get started. All right, so let's do, let's say that f of x is 5x, and let's say g of x is x plus 2. Okay, so let's do, we'll do a little bit of each of these. So f plus g of x, and we'll do f minus g of x, and we'll do fg of x, and we'll do f over g of x. Okay, so this just means, so f plus g, this is just means take f of x plus g of x. Okay, well, f of x is 5x, g of x is x plus 2. This plus is, let me go back and highlight. Okay, and then just combine like terms. F of x, or 5x plus x is 6x plus 2. Okay. All right, this one just means f of x minus g of x. So when you do this, you have to be careful because you are subtracting all of this. So what do we have to do with that minus? Right, we have to distribute it. So f of 5x minus x minus 2 gives me 4x minus 2. Okay. Fgx is f of x times g of x. So 5x times x plus 2. Just do the distributive property. This would be 5x squared plus 2 times 5x is 10x. And my last one, this is just f of x over g of x, which ends up being 5x over x plus 2. Now, it just so happens that we, something else that we need to take into account, so we've done domain and range with all of our square roots. We need to think about the domain and range. And the domain and range are really going to be the same for all of these as they would for your two parent functions. And so what I want to talk about with the domain especially, are there any values of x that you can't use here that would give you an imaginary number, or you wouldn't? So things like, for example, square rooting a negative, square rooting a negative is really the only one to think about. So really, there's no restrictions here. So this domain is really all reals, and so is this one. Okay. So when you put them together, the domain of the new function is still all reals. And for this, it's all reals. And for this one, it's all reals. And sometimes I like to refer to this domain as like curfew, okay? So you're going out on a date. This is you and this is your significant other. You're going on a date. You can both stay out all night, okay? So when you go out on the date, you can stay out all night. You can stay out all night. You can stay out all night. It's only until you make it down here to the division where we might have to restrict the domain, okay? Because I was all reals, except when I get something in the denominator, I have an issue. So here's why. You need to take, so step one, take your denominator, set it equal to 0. Because what we can't have in the denominator is 0. That is a big no-no, okay? So if I set this equal to 0 and I solve, x will equal a -2. X can't be a -2 because that would give me a denominator of 0. So unfortunately on your date, you're going to have to restrict that curfew because you cannot have a -2 here. So I like to write it like this. You can have all real numbers, but do not have a -2. And that's our domain. So really division is where you might have a more restricted domain value. And if you were to take this and graph it, this would have a spot where you could not equal that, okay? Because denominator being 0 is a definite no-no, okay? Now, if you were to go back and evaluate any of these, for example, when we do the next, evaluate this when x is 3, all you have to do is plug into your x value and you'll get that value. It's pretty easy, okay? All right, you ready? Let's try, so I'm going to try some different ones. I'm going to try, on this side, I'm going to do some different values, okay? So this one, f of x is 3 square root of x. G of x is -10 square root of x, and I want you to do f plus g of x. I want you to do that first, and then I want you to evaluate when x is 4. Okay, so the first thing I want you to do is add these up. Okay, so what do I get? 3 plus a -10 is -7 square root of x. Okay, next I want you to evaluate it when x is 4. So when x is 4, so -7 square root of 4, square root of 4 is 2, and 2 times -7 is -14. All right, what would be the domain? Now this is kind of interesting because the domain, when you look at it, you're like, oh, it should be everything, but is it? Because what can I not take the square root of? You're right, I can't take the square root of any negative values, okay? So what's our domain for this? What would be our domain? It would be x is greater than or equal to 0. So no negative values. Okay. All right. So let's try multiplying. F of x is x squared. I'm just skipping around. F of x is x squared. G of x is the square root of x. Find f g of x. So x squared times the square root of x. Now, you might say, well, I can't do that. That's just x squared, square root of x. But see how they're the same? Could I write that square root differently? Sure. How about I write it like this? So what is 2 plus a half? Well, that'd be 2 and 1/2. What is that in a fraction? That's 5 halves, right? And then if I wanted, hey, could you find when x is 9? Plug that in. So what's 9 to the 5 halves power? Well, the square root of 9 is 3, and 3 to the 5th power is 243. Now, what would be the domain of this? Well, remember, what does this look like? Right? Can I take the square root of negatives? I can't. So x has got to be greater than or equal to 0 again. I can't take the square root of negatives. So this would be my domain. This is why we were talking about how your swoop goes a certain way. All right, last one. Let's try a division. So f of x is 6x, okay? G of x is x to the 3/4. And I want you to do f of x over g of x. All right, here we go. 6x over x to the 3/4. Okay, friends. What is this power, though you don't see it? You're right, it's a 1. So what's 1 minus 3/4? Well, that's easy. That's 6x to the 1/4 power. Okay? I can evaluate that if I want. If I want you to find out f of 16. So 6 times 16 to the 1/4 power. Well, 16 to the 1/4 power is 2, and 2 times 6 is 12. Now, let's think about domain. Okay, first of all, notice we have a 4th root, right? 4th root, you can't have negatives. So x has got to be greater than or equal to 0. But what can't x be in the bottom? Ooh, see I'm making it with my pen. X can't be 0. I can't have this. That is a no-no. So you know what? I've got to get rid of that equal to and just make it greater than 0. Okay? So it's kind of like you used to have a curfew, and the minute your parents found out you were going with that guy, then now you have to be home earlier. Okay? All right, so we're going to practice more on this.